Hello and welcome to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. My name is Kyle Case and I'll be your host on this amazing journey as we attempt to help you get the most out of your life. Today's guest, Jeff Asay, has spent the past 14 years competing in multiple sports at the Huntsman World Senior Games, including softball, basketball, volleyball, tennis, and pickleball. In fact, one year he did all of them. Jeff served a church mission in England where he also learned to love cricket, and he was a basketball walk-on at Blue Mountain Community College. Jeff also coached high school tennis for 10 years and balances athletic competition, business ownership, and an active lifestyle, which he says is essential for managing his type 2 diabetes and maintaining both physical as well as mental health. Despite injuries over the years, ranging from a ruptured ACL to a torn bicep tendon, he competes with enthusiasm as well as a little bit of humor mixed in and just for fun. Jeff is not the only family member who participates in our games. His parents have volunteered in transportation for a number of years, and his mom has recently picked up pickleball and has been playing with us for the past few years. They all love the game's tradition of volunteering, competition, as well as connection. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, listen, everybody's athletic journey is their own. I mean, everybody has their own path. Some people start out with the sport when they're young and they continue to do that for their whole life. Others kind of bounce around from sport to sport. Some don't pick up sports until later on in life. Your story is kind of a combination of all of that, really. You say that you didn't play high school sports, but then you decided to walk on your college basketball team. What changed in the interim between high school and deciding to give it a shot in college?
Sure, I've always been an athletic guy, even in my youth. I was fairly comfortable, though, just playing intramural and church sports growing up. In high school, I was offered the opportunity to play basketball, but I just didn't have the confidence to do it. So my roommate, who buddy growing up, convinced me to join him at Blue Mountain. He got a scholarship, and then he just slow rolled me into the basketball team. So, meaning he's like, well, just come out and try. And the first drills we did, not playing high school basketball, I didn't know any of the drills, but I knew how to shoot, and I'm left-handed. So that helps a lot. And then I remember reading something that said, start with courage and confidence will follow. Because I always felt like I'm just not confident enough to do it. But if I had the courage to try, then confidence would follow. And that's what I did. I walked on a Blue Mountain. They were nice enough to show me the drills, didn't make fun of me too much till I got them figured out. And so I played a year of college basketball, and that courage did beget confidence for me.
And do you feel like that kind of laid a foundation for your future sporting endeavors?
I think that coupled with serving my mission and talking to strangers, because I wasn't a very courageous guy. I think those two things, once I returned from basketball on a mission, I was different in how I approached athletic endeavors.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like you've been able to not only learn some lessons along the way and even as a young man, but also be able to apply those as you go along, which I think is fantastic. So you said you played for about a year in college. Do you have a game or an experience that stands out? Because most of us don't get that opportunity to play at the college level.
Sure. We played. So I live in Eugene, Oregon, and there's a college here that we played against, and my coach was kind enough to let me start because I had lots of friends and family in town. And the gym floor is bouncier than I remember. And back then, you couldn't dunk the basketball in a pregame warm-up or you got a technical foul. And so I was so excited to play that I dunked the basketball in the pregame warm-up, and I didn't get to start. So I didn't get to play the whole first half. But I did get a dunk in.
Well, so pros and cons, right? There's trade-offs in the value proposition.
Absolutely.
There. So what a fun memory. So again, you played sports as a youth, you were active and engaged, you didn't play formal sports until college. You mentioned that you went on a mission, you picked up a love for cricket, you played basketball, you played softball. These are team sports. We're going to get into some individual sports in just a minute, but tell us a little bit about some of the life lessons and the teamwork opportunities that you've learned in jumping in and being engaged in the team sport arena.
Sure. In team sports, you have to learn to be a good teammate. And you think initially, I thought that meant being the highest scorer or shutting down the best defensive player, or in other sports, jumping the highest, blocking the most in volleyball. But that's not what it meant at all. Being a good teammate, being able to be supportive when you're not on the court, being relied upon, asking whatever is needed of you, maybe putting your ego on the shelf for a little bit while you're playing. All those things I learned that involves and is required of you to be a good teammate.
Well, and not only does that apply in sports and on the basketball court and the soccer pitch and in the athletic arena, but certainly those lessons apply in life, within your family, within your job, within your other responsibilities, within your circle of influence, your community. And that's one of the things that personally I love about sports. I think if we will let it, and sometimes we don't, admittedly, but if we will let it, sport can be one of the greatest school grounds and learning opportunities for us. And it feels like you've definitely taken full advantage of that. And speaking of learning opportunities and taking advantage, I mentioned in your bio, you have played a lot of sports here at the Huntsman World Senior Games. And you have even, at least one year, played all of them in the same year, which is a scheduling phenomenon for sure. Tell me, what is it that you feel so why do you feel so drawn to multiple sports and wanted to, be engaged and stay active in that way?
Sure. I have a hard time saying no, first
Okay.
of all, when there's a sport involved. One of the biggest assets for me personally is the team and partner finder that's on the Huntsman site. So as I was looking to test my abilities, all I would have to do was go on. I found a pickleball partner on the partner site. My tennis partner, I found. The volleyball team was out of Colorado. They welcomed me in. And so a couple things that allows me to meet new people and helps continually. I work on, confidence, allows me to realize that my body can do more than that maybe it wants to do. I recall playing all those sports in one year, and I had just finished my tennis match, and my softball team called me and said I was the on deck batter about 15 minutes away. So I told them to stall, run to the bathroom, whatever they needed to do till I got there. But I really enjoy the opportunity to meet people, to test my abilities, to, like I mentioned earlier, to be part of a team. And my parents, who have followed me around in sports since I've been about 8 years old, love to meet new people. So they might, halfway through the game, they might not be watching the game, but they'll be engaged with every other fan there. So, yeah.
And again, that's one of the great things about sport in general. And certainly we see that happen here at the Huntsman World Senior Games. We talk a lot about the competition. The competition is so important. That's the reason that we get together, to compete, to test ourselves, to see where we stack up against other people, maybe have a little bit of success along the way. But one of the other significant benefits of involvement is that social connection. And it goes a long way. And you've definitely put yourself out there. And I want to also just put a plug in for our team finder and partner finder. You're in many ways the poster child of that tool that's available online. But if you are interested in competing in an event at the games and you don't have a partner, or maybe you played a team sport in your youth and you want to get back into it, but you don't have a team, the team finder and partner finder really is a valuable tool. Jeff, I talk to people every year that find their teams through this process, and it's not foolproof and it doesn't work every single time. But I tell you, it doesn't work if you don't give it a shot. and it's worth trying it out. So you can find that right on our website. It's seniorgames.net. You have the ability to connect with any of our teams across the team sports. You can find your age group and your skill level there. We also have, as we said, Partner Finder, which allows people to connect with people who are looking for a partner in double sports. So we're talking, racquetball, pickleball, tennis, table tennis, those types of things. And it works. You're an example of how it works.
It definitely works. And I got over being intimidated the first time I found my tennis partner. His dad drove up in his car with Oregon Duck signs all over it. And I'm a huge Oregon Duck fan. And so it has been a great experience. I would recommend anybody who wants to try a sport, even if maybe it's not your main sport, give it a try. Find a team that's looking for a player and give it a go and see. You'll be welcomed.
Do you feel you kind of alluded to this, but do you feel nervous when you step on the pickleball court or the tennis court for the first time with what kind of amounts to be a complete stranger?
Yes, and the main reason is because I'm very competitive. So ask my
Okay.
grandkids when we play Monopoly. I'm a competitive guy, but I quickly am able to put that aside and learn to be a good partner, a good teammate, and get to know. In pickleball, a couple years ago, my mixed doubles partner was a Canadian lady, and while I first think of watching my opponent warm up, what's their weakness, what's my strength, she was grabbing badges and Canadian flags and handing to our opponents before every single match. So I was quickly be able to change my focus to really enjoying the experience and letting that be first and competition second.
Yeah, and again, we're not downplaying the importance of competition, and I'm a competitive person. People around me know that, but there is a larger picture here, and oftentimes just through that social connection, it does create those competitive opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have seen in the first place. So I think that's awesome. Before we leave the multi sports, you talked about the transition from tennis to softball. But on the year that you competed in, was it 6 different sports at the games?
Mm-hmm.
How chaotic was that? And did it spread out over the full 2 weeks, or was it all kind of stuffed into 1 week?
It was both weeks. So I played on a younger age group softball, which is the first week, 55 softball. Then my age group was 60 softball. So that encompassed both weeks. Volleyball, I had to pick and choose when I could be there to help the team out. And so it was the hardest thing was organizing what uniforms to change in the car to get from sport to different sport and making sure I had enough snacks to keep my energy up. But I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's an element that honestly I would not have thought of. But how important is that? You can't go to your volleyball game with your softball uniform on. It just doesn't work.
Correct. That's correct.
Well, that's awesome. Any aspirations to try that again, or was 1 year enough?
No, to be honest with you, I have a goal since I was able to start the Huntsman Games at 50 to playing as many different sports as I can possibly play. Who knows? I might try square dancing and horseshoes one day.
Well, I hope that you do. I hope that you do. So, I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about injuries. You actually experienced an injury at the Huntsman World Senior Games where you tore your bicep. Um, Tell us, mentally, emotionally, physically, like what happened there and how do you recover from that?
Sure. So I have been fairly injury free of major injuries in my adult life. I was playing volleyball and I was in the back row, and I think this 8'5" guy on the other side decided to spike it. And in my brain, I was 20 years old again, and I envisioned myself diving for the ball, popping it up so my teammates could get it. Instead, he hit it so hard, he hit my elbow and it ruptured my bicep tendon. Thank heavens that at the Dixie Center, the medical team was fantastic. They got me right over there. and because I still had to play softball the next week. And so it happened to my right arm. Luckily, I'm left-handed. And so I played softball the next week, and then I had surgery when I got home. But a couple things. The Huntsman medical facility and staff was incredible. I got to remember I'm not 20 again, so pick and choose your athletic battles and how resilient that your body is. It's I was back to full strength after surgery in just a few months.
I've talked to enough of our athletes over the years to know that one of the most difficult lessons and transitions into senior sports is what you just talked about. Remembering that you're not 20 anymore. And that doesn't mean that you can't push yourself. And that doesn't mean that you can't go all out and give 100%. But I do think that there's a valuable lesson in there somewhere about recognizing the limitations of aging and then working within those constructs to still be your best self, push yourself, try to get better, work for improvement, but recognizing that there is a little bit of different in the movements and the joints and the musculature and the skeletal structure and all that. And again, it sounds like a lesson that you learned along the way. So fantastic. And I'm glad that our medical people were able to help you out and get you back up. I also want to comment on your toughness and your willingness to just kind of grit your teeth and fight through. So congratulations on that. Speaking of health and wellness, you manage type 2 diabetes. Tell us a little bit about how sport helps you do that.
Sure, absolutely. So my grandpa was diabetic. My dad is type 2 diabetic. I have always had a hard time laying off of double stuffed Oreos and Lucky Charms, so I figured it was coming. So
Two,
about
two of our favorites, right?
yeah. What are you gonna do? So 15 years ago ish, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and struggling to change my diet. Um, I knew that I would have to stay active, keep my weight down, keep my blood sugar down, and a way to do that is stay active. Luckily, I've always enjoyed being active. I have a ball around me, I'm good to go. So as as I age, and I maybe some days I don't want to be as active as I should be. I know that managing my diet and my diabetes, staying active, really helps that. And my blood sugars have gone down. I probably play a sport, 4 days a week. I'm going to play tennis here in 3 hours or so. So I know how important it is, and it's a continual motivator for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is a motivator for sure when you're trying to manage a health issue like diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, whatever it is. These opportunities that we take advantage of to be a part of sport, and in your case, the Huntsman World Senior Games specifically, can be not only a powerful motivator, but a motivator that ends up with a great result in the long run. So, shifting gears once again quickly, you've been an athlete. Obviously, you've talked about the number of sports that you played. You've set this great goal to compete in as many sports as you possibly can at the Huntsman World Senior Games. But you've also given back to the sport in other ways. You've been a tennis coach. Why do you feel like giving back to the sport is important, and how has it benefited your life?
Oh, absolutely. So the high school that I coached tennis at was the high school I went to, and I didn't even know they had a tennis court. I was all basketball all the time. No other sport mattered to me. So I didn't know where this tennis court was located. And then when I had the opportunity to coach, I committed to 2 years of coaching. And 10 years later, I just handed in my keys because it was so rewarding to be able to see those young men improve and have a relationship with them, and motivate them, get them courage and confidence like I was going through when I was in high school. And so 10 years later, I'm kind of sad to see it go, but it was time, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I just gave my salary back to the athletic department because I was one of those kids that couldn't afford to play. So I was given that opportunity. And I just didn't really want there to be, at least what I could help with, no reason that a young adult couldn't play a sport they chose.
Well, thank you, and I know that means a lot. it meant a lot to the players that you were able to help, and obviously, meant a lot to you as well. And I feel like has been impactful for you. The games here, you obviously, we've talked about your participation as an athlete. It's a family affair, though. Your parents have helped out as volunteers, and most recently, your mom has even picked up pickleball as a competitor. What is it like to be competing at the stage that you're at with your parents? How cool is that?
It's very cool. So initially, they both, mom and dad, volunteered. So they volunteered for 3 or 4 years, and then mom picked up pickleball, I think, when she turned 80, and she's kind of known as the Pied Piper of pickleball in Eugene, at 85 years old. So again, I got on Partner Finder and found mom mixed doubles and women's 80 plus partner for pickleball. And she absolutely loves it. She's been following me around, mom and dad, to my sports, since I was, 8 years old. And so now I get the opportunity to, coach her, even though that's a double-edged sword, coaching your 85-year-old mom. If anybody ever comes and sees Cornerstone 60 softball, mom will be handing out cookies to everybody still. And I really enjoy being there with them. We're there together for the full 2 weeks, and they really enjoy it. And I really enjoy supporting them.
Well, I can definitely echo that sentiment. I've had the opportunity to compete with both of my parents. I've run the 5K with my mom. My dad pitches horseshoes. I haven't been able to compete side by side with him, but to be involved in the games together really is it's just a special feeling. And just like you, my parents traipsed all around the countryside chasing after their kids playing sports, and to be able to go and watch and compete with them and participate at their side has been just really life affirming and a very, very special experience for sure. No question about it. We only got about, I don't know, a minute and a half left, but I want to talk about tennis and pickleball. Now you started out playing tennis. You've been commandeered into pickleball. You kind of say you got dragged into it. The sport dragged you into it. Talk about the differences for you and why you still prefer tennis between the two.
I have to be a little careful here because I have so many of my friends are pickleball players now and tennis players. I prefer tennis because the court is larger. I can burn more calories. But pickleball, I've got to admit, the barrier to entry for pickleball is so friendly. When I go travel around to play, I travel all over the nation playing softball tournaments and some tennis tournaments. I'll always bring my pickleball paddle with me. In fact, I just got off a cruise a few months ago, brought my pickleball paddle with me. All I have to do is stand at the fence holding my pickleball paddle like I'm a 7-year-old boy looking for a game, and I'm in. And so the barrier
So true.
is so
That
true.
is so true.
Yeah, the barrier to entry is easy. It's very friendly. I can play with my 85-year-old mom and my 17-year-old grandson if needed, and still enjoy ourselves. So that's the reason I got into pickleball.
And everything you said is so true about that sport. It is just the barrier to entry is so low. The social aspect of it is so important. The ability to step onto the court and just play a game. Now, the more you play, the better you get, and there's nuances and strategy and all that stuff. But to be able to just step on the court and play with just a minimal level of coordination, it's no wonder that the sport has taken off. And so I appreciate that aspect of the sport as well. And I've watched that take place throughout my involvement with the Huntsman World Senior Games, as we've kind of been a champion of pickleball from early on. But Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. We want to wish you the very best in your endeavor to compete in as many sports as you possibly can. And we'll keep our eye on you and watch for you in the results books.
Thanks, Kyle. I really appreciate it. And if you see my parents, say hi. If you see me playing too many sports, drag me aside and knock some sense into me.
We'll do our best, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, now is the time to get your spot secured at the Huntsman World Senior Games. You can do that as well as find all the information, the rules, the venues, the details, everything you need to know at seniorgames.net. The games this year is going to run from October 5th through the 26th. Put that on your calendar. Don't miss out. Be a part of it this year. Next week, Dr. Reagan Stigman is a former U.S. Air Force flight surgeon, lifestyle medical expert, and former soccer standout in the Olympic Development Program. Multiple ACL injuries redirected her path towards medicine, and now she is an associate professor of preventative and lifestyle medicine, and also the co-author of a book called Staying in the Game with Dr. Shannon McDowell Larson, who just happened to be a guest on our podcast just 2 weeks ago. We're going to visit with her next week. Don't miss that show. You're going to love it. Remember to tune in live next and every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time on AM 1450 or FM 93.1 for the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. We take this live show and turn it into a podcast, and you can find it wherever you find your favorite shows. If you're listening or watching the podcast, take a moment and give us a rating, write a quick review. That can really help us spread the word. You can also find this and previous shows on our website. Once again, that is seniorgames.net. So check that out. Today's inspirational thought comes from one of my very personal favorites. It's President Theodore Roosevelt, who once said, "Keep your eyes on the stars and your feet on the ground." Until next Thursday, stay active.